Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. This is the midweek pod with the Texas Tech preview. We are a bowl-eligible team rolling into weirdo Lubbock, Texas to try and get our 7th win on the season, keeping the momentum going. I think we're going to do it. Some others might disagree. I'm Steve.
I'm Connor.
Lucas.
Jay.
We are ready to talk about a lot of things, not just the Texas Tech game coming up, which is it's weird. It's a little hard to focus on. They've been such a team that I haven't paid any attention to, that I don't know what to say about them. They obviously beat Texas. They obviously have had a few games that did not go their way in a big way. They don't seem like they're very good, but they don't seem like they're completely awful. OU is just a 1.5-point favorite. We'll get into our predictions a little later of what we think will happen, but I still think, maybe even more so think than going into last week's game, that I don't know what can happen. Anything could happen. Last week you could have told me any score in the world and I would have believed it, and I really wouldn't have. I mean, you start out the game fantastically, you're up 28-0, could have been 35-0, and then we just go flat. So it's really a tale of two different games. You could have told me that the score was 28-13. I wouldn't have pieced it together the way it happened. But this game, I don't know. Anything could happen. Absolutely anything, and I would believe it. I don't know if that's just a lack of faith on this team and what they're putting together. Maybe I should have a little bit more faith. They definitely put a pretty darn good product out there for 15 of 60 minutes. So if they can put that together for, 20 minutes and correct the mistakes that they have recognized, that Lebby has taken 100% responsibility for, then maybe they can come through with a full game. The defense, though, I think it's the one thing I can say with confidence, the defense is playing extremely well. Given who they are, their limitations, they're playing really, really well. I can't really ask more. And honestly, going back several games now, they've played very, very well. With all the mistakes they've had, they've kept us in every game since the Texas game, right? I'm not missing something there.
I think the one maybe blip is just or hiccup maybe the Baylor game. We score 35 points in that game and still are unable to close it out when we really need to. But you look at the last two games. West Virginia, there's a couple of moments where we were scratching our head, but any time that you're only giving up, for this team in the past, only giving up 23 points, and 3 of those points are scored on the last field goal or last play of the game. Defense has played really well the last 2 weeks. I think a lot of the
relative to them.
Yeah, exactly. Relative to what we've seen and even where the middle of the season was, like you just mentioned, with TCU, where we looked in complete disarray. Texas obviously just ran all over us. So relative to what this team is, the defense has been playing well the last couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, this day and age, you hold anybody to 23 points, and it's usually a victory. So that game is frustrating. West Virginia, like you said, we played well but couldn't tackle the backup quarterback. Was really the only deficiency on the day. We just couldn't stop us scrambling.
Yeah, a couple chances of a 4th and 11 and 4th and 12 there towards the end that you give up.
Not perfect by any means. No. Obviously not perfect by any means. But I think our biggest shortcoming right now is offense. Mm-hmm. Inconsistency. The biggest inconsistency is probably offense.
Yep.
Individuals are being inconsistent on defense as well as offense. But I worry more about our offense being able to play a full 60 minutes and keep us in a game one way or the other at this point. I think our defense is going to do enough for us to win a game like this game against Texas Tech. Obviously not an extremely skillful team, not a team that's accomplished a lot, not a lot of talent on that team.
Have we seen 4 quarters of offense?
I don't think we have. No.
We would have against Nebraska
right.
if we didn't call the dogs off in the 4th quarter.
I guess. You're right. We probably should have, would have.
But what's funny about that game is we're complaining about some of the same stuff last week as we complained about, where we're not running the clock down against Nebraska and stuff like that. So if you want to go full spectrum, complete game with coaching and players doing what they need to do to close a game out, I would argue to say we probably have not seen a full 4 quarters of offense.
Yeah, another
this
game where
season.
you have an explosion in a quarter and put the game away, but don't do
But can't
much.
truly put the game away
Yeah.
after that. So Texas Tech, they are bowl eligible, so they're not playing for a bowl game, which is probably a net positive for us. They don't have that to inspire them.
I don't know. I think it also takes the pressure off, and they can maybe get more tricky
Maybe so.
with their
Maybe so.
play calling and kind of just loose.
Yeah. Could be.
Because they don't have to worry about, we have to win this game to make a bowl
You
game.
could say the same thing about us.
Yeah.
You could,
Yeah.
but
We're
our
in the
offense
same
has no
position.
imagination, so we don't have to. That's not a factor.
I don't know. I could see you spinning it either way. That's a good point, but it does feel like, as far as a motivation, demotivation factor, the motivation factor isn't there. They're not going to be all week hearing, you've got to win this game, we've got to play hard, we've got to practice hard. I could see them getting distracted as the week goes on because their season doesn't have a lot going for it. Now, same thing you could say about us. We could be distracted too. I would like to think we're better coached than that. I think we probably have a coaching advantage over Texas Tech, as well as a player talent advantage. So I think we're the better team on paper in a lot of different ways.
They've had an interesting season. They beat a decent Houston team by 3, lost to NC State, beat Texas in overtime, lost to Kansas State by 9, lost to Oklahoma State by 10, thumped West Virginia 48-10. That's probably their best game of the season. Then the following week, they followed up by getting thumped by Baylor 45-17. Then they lose by 10 to TCU, beat a Kansas team by 2 touchdowns, barely beat Iowa State last week. So they're pretty erratic.
Not for nothing, I know there's been changes across the board in terms of player, personnel, and coaches, but we did handle them last year. We played very well against them. So to the extent that that's going to translate into this year, we were a very superior team to them, and maybe a superior team to what they bring to the table. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out.
And now their head coach is on our staff.
That's right.
I wonder if that does anything to help
Motivate
our
them,
preparation.
or
Our preparation
our
against
preparation.
them.
Yeah, I would
Even
think
though
it
they're running
does.
a new system, Joey McGuire.
Yeah.
But maybe he has some insight on what players are good at certain situations and what our players' weaknesses are.
I would hope he does. I hope he brings some information to the table that way.
It didn't help Texas beat TCU when they had Gary Patterson on the sideline against his old team.
Yeah. What may have made it closer than it would have
Maybe.
been otherwise.
Yeah.
Who knows? I'd like to think it would help. I don't know. It's just tough. We're in a frustrating rebuilding year where we're worried about, thinking about, don't know about a Texas Tech game. If this were an ideal season, what would we be talking about right now? In a what we hope is the future season, this is a game where we're
Staying
just
in the
saying,
playoff.
stay in the playoff, get this victory. You got to get this victory.
Championship
We're
November.
14-point favorites. Let's just make sure we take care of business in Lubbock. Don't lose sight of this. Worrying about the title game coming up in the conference. Yeah, it's a different picture, that's for sure, and not one that you want to be in and not expect to be in year in and year out as a Sooner fan. So before we go any farther, let's get to the sort of elephant in the room, and that is the locks of the week.
The realest deal. Locks of the week.
We are. What's the opposite of tearing it up? I guess if you had a bunch
Tearing
of
it down.
Yeah, or if you had a bunch of money, you would be tearing it up and throwing it in the fire, because that's kind of what we've been doing. So last week, Connor was 2-1. I mean, that's good, right? That's I would take 2-1 every week, but I didn't
If
get
I could
that.
do it every week, I would absolutely.
Well, you haven't. You have not done that.
I
every
have
week.
not.
Yeah, I was 1-2. Lucas was 1-2, and our former hero Jay was 0-3.
It was a bad 2-week stretch for me here.
You haven't won a game since week 10, man.
Yeah.
You haven't had a winning record since week 9. Well, overall, we are 45%, 65 and 79, and so we are officially, anyone who's been fading us is actually making money. And that's just frustrating. But that all ends this week, I think. That is done. We're done. We got all the losses out of the way. And now we're going to have some really good picks. We're going to go ahead and do the good picks. So
He's talking to you, Mike.
yeah, exactly, Mike. Thanks a lot, Fader. So I'll start it off. I've got New Mexico getting 7.5 from Colorado State. The Mighty Lobos are going to pull it out. They know what they're doing. I've been to Albuquerque. It's a beautiful place. I've got Northern Illinois giving 9.5 to Akron. The Zips. They're probably gonna score a Zippo. And then I got Louisville. They are getting 3.5 against Kentucky. At first, I didn't want to pick that because I thought we weren't allowed to pick basketball games, and I realized that actually was a football game. But I'm going to take Louisville getting 3.5 against the Wildcatters. Connor, what do you got?
Good picks. So I'm gonna go with the old reliable, maybe not reliable, but old faithful. I'm gonna go Coastal, getting 13.5 against James Madison. Second game, I've got Oregon giving 3.5 against Oregon State, and then to finish off the regular season, I am going to take Oklahoma, giving 1.5 to Texas Tech.
Nice. Lucas, what do you got?
Wow, bold pick there at the end.
Are you going to pick 3 games or 4? Because you sent me 4.
You know,
It's like I need all the help I
I
can
like
get
4
right now.
games. Let's see. I got
Pick
Nebraska.
any 3 of the 4 that are winners.
Nebraska getting 10.5 at Iowa.
That's at Iowa? I didn't realize
Iowa
that.
struggles to score, period. So beating Nebraska by 11 or more seems far-fetched.
That does seem tough.
Let's see. I got Ohio State minus 7.5 against Michigan.
Go Blue.
I only like that because Michigan's only real threat to me is the running back, and he seems to be injured. So I think that's going to play into Ohio State's hands. And then I've got LSU going to College Station minus 9.5. I think the Aggies continue to fall, and we all continue to laugh at them.
I don't want to distract us, but a guy at work asked an interesting question. What's the over-under on the number of portal players A&M is going to have entering the portal?
I hope it's 20.
It's at least 10, if not 15.
I would
He put-
put the over under at 8.5.
He put that's more conservative than he was going to go. He was going to go 14,
Yeah.
but I think 8 would be a huge number.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 or 20,
I
that'd
think
be
it's 10.
giant numbers.
Yep.
And I think it
Is
might
eight,
be.
is 8 a big number?
It is. That's a massive.
I think that's a pretty big number.
I don't know. I bet we see.
Okay, well,
I bet we
maybe
see
not
6
of
to 8.
just players from your team. I don't think that's a big number.
Right.
But
Of who it's gonna
significant
be.
players.
Significant players, yeah.
That's a big number.
It would be different if they were, and they've got a roster full of 5 stars, 4 stars, and 3 stars. If you said, okay, turns out I'm playing behind 2 other 5 stars, and I'm never going to see the field, so I'm leaving. Sorry to see you go. We'd love to have you stick around, but also we're recruiting these other guys in your same position that are as highly recruited. They're 5 stars. That's not the case. These guys are jumping ship because they want to get out of there. That thing is on fire, and I think that's hilarious.
And again, not trying to get us off. If I'm Texas A&M, I'm paying a quarterback $1 trillion to come play. They have no quarterback.
So that tweet
play.
you sent was amazing. They're not going to have a quarterback, a receiver, a running back in
No
this
skilled
class.
players.
Tight end.
No skilled players.
signed in the class.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
they've still got a month, but
True.
Yeah, okay. A month after as much time as they've had. How crazy is that?
Yeah,
You're Texas A&M. It's wild.
it'll be the first time
It's amazing.
it's
in recruiting
history.
that we've been tracking it, right?
All right,
All right.
back to the locks of the week.
All right, back to the real winners. I'm
got
going to
there,
go Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl minus 2.5. Going Oregon minus 3.5.
Agreeing with Connor.
Yep. And I'm going out on a limb here, Vanderbilt plus 14.5 over a Tennessee team whose season
Sad.
His
is
quarterback is
just
done.
Just
It's
went-
gone from the highest of high to it's crashing here at the end.
It's crashing bad. I have
Just
no
like
idea.
Josh Heupel on a diet.
I have no idea what their backup quarterback situation is, but they could lose a 14-point game.
Is Hendon Hooker out?
Yeah, he tore his
Towards
ACL.
ACL.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they could
You
lose
watch
a bowl
college football?
game. Unfortunately, they're
Did
going
you see
to.
my state of being Saturday night?
Yeah, I don't think he watched the game he was at, much
Oh,
less
yeah, I
any other
forgot.
games. So they could lose their bowl game because they're going to get a tough bowl matchup. That's really sucks for them. And what's interesting, I started to take that one too because my analytics that have my model doesn't know anything about injuries had that game at like 14, real close to 14 and a half. I'd have to look it up to see. And so when I'm going to had it at I guess I had Tennessee at 21 and a half, maybe not that. Yeah, I guess it was a little farther apart. So I got to think that he's worth a couple touchdowns. I don't know. So I started to take that too, but there still was a gap that could be made up with just the overall talent level.
Well, in Vanderbilt, I mean, I think it was 2 weeks ago. It's their first
Victory.
road SEC win
right.
in several years.
Right.
And then they followed that up by beating Florida last week, which who knows when the last time they beat Florida was.
Pretty awesome.
And now they have a chance. They're on the up, and Tennessee's on the down.
Yeah. Florida, that's an interesting story. That boy, how would you like to be a Florida fan right now? That doesn't seem like things are going in the right direction either. There's a lot of teams in the SEC things don't seem to be going in the right direction. We may be entering right at the right time.
I bet there's
year.
a lot of teams that look at us and say the same thing, though. It's interesting. It's just
Yeah,
weird.
but they're wrong, right? I mean, we got a brand new
They're
coach
absolutely
and
wrong.
Well,
everything.
Florida's got a new coach.
On
yeah,
the
but
upswing.
his name's Billy Napier. Like,
Yeah,
it's
he's-
not Brent Venables.
He's dumb.
Yeah, that's very different.
No,
very
it's
different.
just yeah. Florida's got more reason to hope. A&M is hopeless at this point. They're in really bad shape. Well, those are the locks. Those sound like solid locks. I don't see how they could miss. I think we're going to be
None
12
of us
and
picked
0.
against any of the others. I mean, we've got
No, we started to have one, but then somebody changed in the background. We do have a couple, or at least one common one, the Oregon over Ohio State. Oregon State.
Oregon State,
So if Oregon State beats Oregon, would Utah, or does Oregon still have the tiebreaker, so they would still play USC in the conference title? Is that right?
I'm not sure because it's not. They haven't said it, right? It's
I
not-
thought that game last week at the end of the night.
USC is in.
I know that. I thought that game with Oregon Utah was if Oregon wins, they're in. But
If it is, I haven't heard them specifically say that's the matchup.
what are the
Like,
stands?
I mean,
Yeah,
if
that's
Oregon-
true. They haven't said that's
If Oregon
the
beats
matchup.
Oregon State, it's Oregon USC.
I know that. That's not the question.
What's
But-
the question?
Utah might have to win. Obviously, they have to win their game.
No, so Utah has 2 conference losses, I believe.
Well, I'm pulling it up.
Oregon has 1.
But usually, you see the announcement. They're
Yeah, Oregon has 1, so they would have 2. Utah would have theoretically 2. Washington would have 2. Who did Washington lose to?
They lost.
Washington lose to UCLA and Arizona State. So
Cool.
let's see, did Oregon beat them? They did. So Oregon, I think it's Oregon because they have the tiebreaker. Let's see if it's actually is the matchup. Going to week 14, of course, it's not going to have it. That's awful. Well, we'd have to look it up elsewhere. I'm not getting the information here. But let's see.
If it's not set on ESPN, it's not set because ESPN has set the SEC championship game. So if there's definitive participants in that, they would have the game posted.
Well, we'll look that up as we're talking. But so that'd be interesting. I don't know who I want to play USC other than I want a team that will beat them really badly.
I don't think it's Utah. I think I'd rather take
Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Oregon's the better matchup to beat them, but obviously a lot remains to be seen on that. So, should we get to our predictions on this game, and then we can talk about some stuff happening off the field and going into the future?
Yep.
So who wants to start us off? Who's brave enough to venture out there and tell us what they've got for a score prediction?
I will homer it up. I've got OU 41, Texas Tech 27.
Nice.
I say that score kind of under the same feeling that you expressed earlier, Steve, where with this game there's been no sort of inkling of this is how it's going to be. I feel like this could go. We could win 41-27 like I'm predicting. We could lose we could lose 41-27, and both results would be. I would have equal feelings of. Oh,
I could see a 12-9 game
I'm not
given the
shocked.
weather.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, exactly, and with the weather and everything else. So, I think I predicted that score before looking at the forecast. I'll be surprised if it's as high scoring as what I'm predicting at this point, but who knows?
Do we have? Let me ask this: when we talk about weather, do we have an advantage? I don't know what Texas Tech has played in, but we've played in a game very similar to this.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Does that maybe give us an advantage? That
Maybe
it's
we'll
not
bring the
completely
right gloves this
unexpected?
time, you mean?
That'd be
As opposed
nice.
to West Virginia?
That'd be nice. Start with
Seems
the
like we
right
have a lot of
gloves.
drops when we play in cold weather
Yeah.
the last couple weeks.
I mean, I have no idea, but when it's not a
Mims had a
foreign
drop
concept to
game.
you, it'd be good to. I think it might be to your advantage.
Farouk had a drop game. It's been pretty bad in the cold.
I think that our
receiver-wise.
receivers have been pretty bad in general. So cold, hot, sunny, cloudy, wet, dry. I don't know. But maybe, I don't know. I'm just trying to bright side it to think maybe if we've seen these conditions already and we've already played in them, it may not be as a shocking of a situation as it may.
I do think it helps having been in this type of environment before this. Absolutely, I think there's some
probably hurts us
some
that
benefit
we
there.
lost in that environment,
Right.
and it may bring up bad memories and
Yeah.
put you in a state of mind that's kind of already defeatist. I don't know. So I could see a reason to be a little pessimistic about it. Speaking of pessimist, Lucas, what's your score prediction?
I've got Oklahoma 24.
All right.
Texas Tech 27 in overtime.
In overtime. You're going to specify
I've
that.
got a 21-21 going into overtime.
Who
OU
scores
gets the ball first, kicks a field goal.
Do we tie it or do they tie it?
I don't know.
Oh, that you don't know.
21-21 going to overtime.
Okay.
We get the ball first. We kick the field goal,
Okay.
24. Texas Tech proceeds to go in and score on us. Wow. No extra point needed. 27-24.
Interesting. So if that exact thing doesn't pan out, you get no credit for this prediction,
Okay.
no matter how accurate you are on the rest of it. All right, Jay.
Yeah, I struggled some picking a score. This is probably slightly too high also, based off the current weather projections, but I went 34-30 OU.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
It's got us covering.
Well, I have us coming out. We come out sensational yet again. We go up 21-0. We then let them get 2 more touchdowns. Oh, I thought we were getting real specific with it. So I have us winning 45-28. I don't know in any way how we get there, but that's just my score prediction.
That's what it'll be at the end of the game.
What have you
That's
seen
all
in
that
this
matters.
offense
That's all that
recently that
matters.
thinks we'll score in the 40s?
If they could put together 2 quarters, they'll score in the 40s. They put together a single quarter that gets us halfway there, more than halfway
here's
there.
my thing is I think at this point in the season, I think the most frustrating part of what we're seeing right now is the just complete lack of identity that we have on offense. And it's cliche, it's cheesy, but at the same time, I think I, going into this year, had a lot more confidence that we would find an offensive stride
Oh, absolutely.
a lot more quickly than what we have defensively. I'm not saying defense got there fast and that defense is at a place where we're saying we've arrived, but we have seen some progression towards consistency, which we have just not seen at the offensive level. So I would love to see, we've said it podcast in and podcast out, complementary football where we see both sides of the ball doing their job. And if we can see, like Steve said, if you see 2 quarters of the offense doing what they are obviously capable of, based on what we saw last week, then you're gonna see some mid-30s to low 40s, if not mid-40s games where we should be putting it away with the way the defenses have been playing. So
I think
I
they're
think it's
obviously capable of
out of
scoring that
question.
way. This isn't 2001 or maybe the Blake Bell year that you just feel like there's no offensive production or you can't see it. This offense can score, and they can score fast. The problems have been they have been completely inconsistent in achieving that. They've missed wide open receivers. They just list all the problems, obviously. I would say it's the possibilities there, but do I have a lot of confidence in 45-28? No. Can't.
What's really been strange is normally when you can run the football as successfully as we've been able to, the scoreboard reflects that, and third down percentages show up when you run the football like that as well. And neither thing has been happening, so it is a very odd offensive structure.
That's a really good point. Down the stretch, as good or bad as the running game has been, as good and bad as Gray has been, one criticism you could actually make to say it's not been that great is in the critical situations we haven't been able to get the short yardage we need, much less the just yardage we need.
If only we had a play designed to pick up a yard or two.
Like when there wasn't a quarterback that received the ball, and like you had a big player who was very mobile and highly skilled who could do it. That's a great idea. We call it, I don't know, the crazy cat. No, the wild cat. Yeah. And we'd run it effectively several times a game. Just an idea.
Randomly, too. There's no need to specifically do it. Just short yardage.
Yeah,
do it.
Pigeonhole it.
You just do it. Just do it. No, I think that's a good criticism and concern that we haven't been able to do the things you need to do as a good running team. As many yards per play as we've been able to produce and all the other stats and accolades, when it really was needed or really would count, it didn't happen.
I mean, you have Gray at 7 yards a carry. That should open up the passing game like nobody's business.
You would think.
And at times it does. And then for painfully long stretches, it doesn't. Now, Levy did admit something that I accused him of doing, which was being way too conservative in the pass game after the first quarter. Got way too tight, way too conservative. And I think he did. I think he went into a shell in terms of the play calling and throwing the ball downfield. And maybe, hopefully, he learns from these things. Hopefully, all of these things are growing pains. I think your point, Connor, was really good about what we've seen out of the defense has been at least steady progression. Uneven, but consistent. Overall, the trend is progression. The offense hasn't seen that same benefit. They take 2 steps forward and then they take 2 steps back, and that's really frustrating and kind of surprising. You got a coach that is brand new in Levy in terms of being the offensive coordinator, I think, with full autonomy. So hopefully he grows into that position a little bit better. And if he doesn't, hopefully we move a different direction. I don't know.
No, and hopefully these coaches just get used to what we saw on Saturday looked like a staff that was not used to being in the position that they were in after 15 minutes of football.
And we're not coordinated between themselves as to how they're going to play. We're talking about complementary football. My God, when you're up 28-0, let's figure out how we're going to just lock this baby away. Yeah. And you determine that in the next 10 minutes of play, where you decide if it's going to be something where you're just going to try to set your score and then we'll figure out at the end of the game what substitutes are in there, versus are we going to try to salt this away, run that clock to nothing. This is obviously, which is usually what you do late in the season. Late in the season, you don't get many opportunities to put in all the backups early on in the second half. Usually you're just, let's get out of this game. We don't want injuries. We want to go in for the night, and we've got a victory. Let's celebrate. We didn't do any of that. We were kind of that weird in between.
Well, at some point, I just want to see the foot on the gas mentality. It's like, look, 15 minutes in, we're up 28-0. Let's hit it. Let's go with full speed. And in the past, we've seen it. We've had to have foot on the gas the whole time because we're playing in shootouts that we have to keep up with. Now I want to see it. It's like we are suffocating people defensively. Let's go and ruin them. Let's just go and be that team that we leave no doubt. So, and we didn't do that. And like you said, I think a lot of that's growing pains. Hopefully Levy, as the singular offensive play caller for our team, understands that the way he ran that offense on Saturday is not going to be effective, especially assuming he's the offensive coordinator when we enter the SEC. It's not going to be acceptable. You got to go and put these teams away early because
there'll be too much talent.
We were 2 plays away from letting a very not good Oklahoma State team back in the game the other
with
day.
A probably injured quarterback.
Exactly. So
yeah, it would be more understandable if in the second quarter rather, Gabriel would have had a fumble that was picked up deep in our territory. If he would have had an interception. But to just stall out the way we didn't really make sense. You weren't trying the right plays to figure out where you want to be. I think we got greedy. I think we were thinking, well, now we can just be very conservative, and yet conservative is going to be good enough that we'll have these 8-minute drives and we'll put it in the end zone, and it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
It just is not there.
Yep.
So lot for them to learn. Well, let's talk about them learning. Let's talk about coaches. Any predictions at this point on what coaches we may lose, either specifically or just generally? How many coaches do we think of the actual coaching staff, not the advisors? What will we lose?
I don't know what we lose. I don't know if we lose anybody, honestly. I think there's technically one spot to be filled still with the full-time
So
coach.
we never replaced Kale.
Right. Well, we elevated Wells, the former Tech coach,
Which vacated
into that
a different
room.
spot.
But did he go
'Cause he
from
was an
advisor
analyst.
to coach? Okay, so
Because
we
he was
did
an analyst.
use. Okay, we did use.
So he
the
moved
position.
up. Now I don't know if he's willing to move
Back down.
back down, or if he's still looking for another job like North Texas or something like that. But
Either way, that the receivers haven't been that good.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, I envision Wells as someone who this is more than likely a resume boost to something where he can go and be a main position coach or coordinator somewhere else, whether it be in North Texas or something like that. I mean,
I think he did us
he's not a long-term guy.
more of just a favor. Like, I'll move into that room and that role and help out this year.
You need it, which is interesting. From not to get ahead of ourselves, I do want to answer the question more specifically. But did we make a strategic decision on elevating him obviously late in the fall camp? You can't just hire somebody to think, well, we're not going to hire somebody at this point. We're going to wait and have our pick of who we want to hire at whatever position we want to hire. Maybe it's Malcolm Kelly at a receivers coach position. Maybe it's someone else at a receiver coach position. Or maybe it's someone else entirely at a different position.
Rumor is we tried. We did try to get Malcolm Kelly right before the season started, and it just
couldn't come together.
wasn't going to happen.
Do you think, from the same places you're gathering that information, is there a chance we could get him now? Would he want to come back home?
I still think he's target 1A.
With the success he's had, even especially now with this success he's had, just add it to the resume.
That might be a good question. I mean, yeah. I mean, if TCU, if they win the Big 12 and make it into the playoffs, I think in a way we'll have our answer by not getting somebody.
Not filling in a position.
Right, all through December.
Of who
that
we're
might give us a
pursuing.
clue. I'm like, okay, well,
That's a good point.
I don't know. Is it Rashad Samples? Is that what I sent to you guys?
I don't remember.
He's on the LA Rams right now, but that seems to be another name that
Yeah,
is very
it was.
popular.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
he,
and I think
and the way the Rams are going,
yeah.
you can leave that job
Right.
whenever. So.
Well, obviously, I think, well, I say obviously, in my opinion, outsider's perspective, I would think going back to your school in the same position, it's at least a lateral move, if not a step up for Malcolm Kelly to come back here in the same position.
Well, there's still the SEC too.
And
Well,
the
and
SEC as well.
and TCU
So I think it's a step up. Now, from the Rams, it maybe on paper is a step down, but maybe not, depending on what's going on. Obviously, it's a different world in professional football, especially with a team that's not doing so well in the NFL. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
and you see, I mean, TCU's not Arizona, but I mean, DeMarco Murray moving from running backs coach at Arizona to running backs coach at OU is a good example of what could be and what we hope for. I mean, again, it's not like Arizona's pumping out Quentin Johnston's
Right.
or something like that TCU is and has a shot at a playoff and maybe beyond. But I don't know.
TCU's not a traditional power. So
Well, and they're not going to remain on the trajectory that they're on right now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to face a lot of down years, or maybe not quote unquote down years, but they're going to face some adversity once Duggan leaves and once these big guys leave as well. So
Yeah, I had a
but
friend
when you
who
talk
was
about big
really-
guys leaving, OU and Texas are leaving, so that conference is up in the air for.
in general.
Yeah, I mean, if Aranda sticks around, Baylor should get back to being really good.
Yeah, they may dominate the
Oklahoma
conference.
State, Gundy's probably never leaving, so they're going to be good. But
I don't know how
Who's to
good
say
they'll
that
be.
TCU we see now isn't what the trajectory of Sonny Dykes is?
In the league,
Yeah.
probably, but
Not to
that's
say
not
that they're
that
going to
high.
go 12-0 every season or anything
Right.
like that, but who's to say they can't be the 10-2 or 9-3 team?
And
Oh, I'm
be-
sure they
in that
can be,
conference.
but that's not that great. And I mean, 9-3 in the Big 12 as in the future.
I mean, it might
Who
be
cares?
something that Malcolm Kelly would rather go 10-2 in the Big 12 than 7-5 in the SEC coming to Oklahoma.
I doubt he thinks he's going to go 7-5 at Oklahoma in the SEC. So
He probably didn't think we were going to go 6-6 this season either.
Well,
We
sometimes
haven't.
your job too, as a recruiter, it's simply easier
yeah,
when you have a different logo on your jersey.
right, absolutely, and in a
So
different
his
league.
workload, to a certain degree, might actually go down. Putting the OU logo on.
Everything's different. Look at the receivers we recruit versus them. Yeah, it's more profile. And if he wants to step to another level, it's a
Yeah, you-
better stepping stone.
Yeah, you want to keep pumping out those types of receivers.
I'd
you
trade
have a
Quentin
greater
Johnston
chance.
for any receiver we got on our squad right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that Malcolm even recruited him technically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, regardless.
Obviously,
If he
he
did.
I'm just saying
coached
we're
up.
comparing types of receivers at one program to the other. It seems like their receivers are better than what
But
we
it's
have.
also-
on
No,
campus.
that's aberration.
Singular.
though. I mean, year
Alabama
after
would
year
take-
after year.
Yeah, Alabama would take Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah.
You could put him
Exactly.
Up against anybody.
Exactly.
Like,
I'll take any 5-year period of OU receivers over any 5-year period of TCU receivers, just flat out. So I would take the 5 years, 1985 through 1990, against TCU's receivers this year. So Eric Bross and beyond. So that'd be interesting to see. I don't. My prediction is we're not going to lose a coach. We're not going to force a coach out. I do see the possibility that there is a mutual decision about someone leaving, and then us wanting to make a different decision. I don't think we're going to lose a coordinator or fire a coordinator. I would find that very unlikely. We've heard a little bit counter thoughts on that, but I don't think that's going to
I
happen.
mean, Beanbo's not going anywhere. DeMarco's not going anywhere. Joe John and Levy are tight.
Yeah,
So
Levy's
as
not
long
going
as Levy's
anywhere.
here, I don't.
I don't think
See
Levy's
where
going
Joe John
anywhere.
going
I don't think
anywhere.
Ted Roof is going anywhere.
I don't think it's any major position coach that leaves. I don't even think.
Brandon Hall is our safeties are playing better, and we're recruiting
Yeah,
Really
pretty
strong.
deep.
really strongly.
Jay
there.
Valai, same thing,
Yeah.
is where he's going to start getting some guys in there. I think if you see any sort of turnover, it's going to be in the lower ranks of support staff or assistants to position coaches, stuff like that.
I bet
where
there's a
we-
lot of turnover there.
Yeah, so and that's kind of a natural progression. I think if you're not looking at those
It's healthy.
positions, if you're not looking at that and saying we need to do better from all sides of the ball, and we can strengthen from the lower levels upwards, I think you need to take those
Now,
opportunities.
Lucas, do you think any different, especially with Ted Roof?
No, I think Venables has a short leash for him if another season looks like this.
I'd agree.
But I think he gives him another season, even though I feel like he could be the Ruffin McNeil mentor type thing that he just brought him over in that aspect. And then it seems like Brent pretty much admitted this week that it's his defense. He's in all the defensive meetings. He's not kind of floating around between all the meeting rooms. And he hadn't really said anything like that this year until this week.
Well, and Brent's bought himself some time as well if needed, right? Like, if they do turn out a similar result next year where you don't see the progression that we all think we should and probably,
Yeah.
hopefully will
That's
see.
a good point.
Then you have a scapegoat.
Then
That's
you
a
have,
great
you have
point.
Ted Roof, who you say, okay, we're going
Oh.
to replace Roof, and you're not. All the attention's not on you, right?
Yeah,
So-
strategically, that's a great point. I'd hate to think that he's thinking that way,
Right.
but it's got to be part of the equation.
I like to
think,
have
I
a
don't
head
have
coach
to make a
that's
move.
got that in him. That doesn't bother me a bit.
No, I think that no, you don't want that. That's a principal agent problem. He's looking out for himself instead of doing what's best for the program. If he thinks he's keeping someone in the program that is not the best person for the job, thinking this isn't the clear time to fire him,
As a buffer.
I will wait and fire him next year if I have to, so that I buy myself another
I
year.
like to
You
see
don't want
I like
that.
the calculation in it if that ends up being the case.
No, I'd rather him have OU's best interest at heart, and I think that he does.
I think both can be true.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But it's still...
I think he thinks that him and Ted Roof can get this thing worked out.
Yes.
But he does have that.
He does
in
have
his back
that, yeah.
pocket.
No, you don't
Yeah.
want to fire him until you absolutely have to fire him. I would hope that it's not, well, I will keep this guy... I don't know how
I don't
things
think
are
it's a
going around
malicious
here.
thing or
Oh no,
Yeah.
and I don't either. I don't think
Right.
it's. I'm going to keep you around
Yeah.
because it's convenient.
That would be
Yeah.
where it's scary.
Yeah, I don't think
Right.
it's that. I do think it's more of the hey, like I do think that we can work together and make this defense what we want it to be.
Yeah.
However, if there's gonna be someone that the axe comes down on, it's not going to be me. It's going to be him.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
I would,
And it's not going to be this season. It's going to be next
Exactly.
season
I
because
would
this
think-
isn't
look
enough.
how we've done. Yeah,
I would think Roof almost knows
I think so
his
too.
position.
He knows the score.
With how much he's moved around, it wouldn't be surprising if he hasn't been in this position more than once already. So
That's a good point. That's a real interesting point. Well, let's talk about from looking at coaches, let's look at players. And one of the critical things they'll be doing over the next few weeks, not right away, obviously, but after this next game against Texas Tech, will be considering who stays, who goes, trying to talk kids into staying. So can they, and hopefully will be successful doing that, and then looking into the portal to think of who they're trying to get. So how much faith or optimism do you guys have about them being able to, as a coaching staff, talk kids into staying, whether or not they should stay, and hopefully they've got the same interest at heart. They're not going to tell a kid he should stay when he actually should go. I think we're beyond that. If you're a coach trying to keep a kid here at a program like this, or maybe any program, when they should be going to the NFL, that's a short-term decision that's going to burn you in the long run. I don't think these guys would do that. I think what they're going to think is, I'm evaluating this as you can come back and add to your resume and actually improve yourself. You should come back for another season, but the question is, can they keep those kids?
I think we'll see it completely different on either side of the ball. I think
Than what we've seen in the past.
I think all the defensive players at heart know this staff knows what they're talking about, and they know what it looks like. And I think the defensive players are much more likely to come back than, say, some of the offensive players.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm. What players do you think are biggest at risk to leave then? Mims?
I think Weiss for sure.
Weiss?
I think Major is a bit, and I think if you're the staff, you probably need to have a conversation with Major and tell him this probably isn't it, because we've got multiple guys that are loaded and ready to go who haven't had the injuries that you have
And are younger.
So Weiss, Major from my standpoint,
I don't think you want to lose anybody on the offensive line that I can think of.
Well, I mean, I think it sounds like Anton Harrison's good enough to at least be a second rounder.
Yeah, you're not going to keep him. No. What up, Morris?
I don't think Chris Murray's coming back.
He's not getting drafted. He's just.
Yeah.
I think
You just
he's
think
ran
he's
out
done?
his time. I think Matauer's time is up.
Yeah.
A lot of
I
turnover
just
on
went
the
blank on
offensive
the right
line
tackle.
then.
He just got hurt. The Tennessee kid.
Yeah.
Wanya Morris.
Wanya Morris.
Wanya Morris, yeah, I just said Morris.
Oh, sorry. He's good enough, I think, to go, but he's a guy that really could.
So
use
that's a
some more
critical guy
time.
as we're talking about it. That can we keep him?
I don't know. Sometimes it just depends.
He's already
They
How
made
much
it sound
he's
like
already had
kids
problems.
Like school,
they
or
made
don't
it sound
like
like
school.
he's done with school.
Yeah, if you're done with school, sometimes it's just.
Well, he
doesn't
was
matter.
done with paying rent for a while.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good sign. And then
So we could have four new starting offensive linemen last year, and the
Next year.
only constant would be Rame, who'd be coming off of shoulder surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So
But some of those guys we have in the ranks, from everything we, and this is what we say every year, but some of those guys we have in the ranks are touted as dudes, right?
I still think you probably portal. I mean,
yeah, I think you need to get at least 2 to 3 offensive linemen in the portal.
I think it will be harder offensively. I think naturally it's harder offensively. I mean,
to get guys from the portal.
no, to keep guys who
keep
are
guys.
to have in mind that they're either going to
Right.
move on or go to the draft. I think it's
and we were talking earlier with Mims. We don't think he's good enough to get drafted very high. So he needs
Definitely
to
doesn't
come
have the
back to
tape.
college. But is he happy with his quarterback situation?
Yeah.
Is he a guy that could go to, I don't want to say it, a USC and have a guy like Caleb Williams throw to it for a year and really up your stock?
Well, that's probably a very big hill to climb for OU because they either are going to have Dylan Gabriel as the starter, who has obviously not had a terrific year, or you're going to replace him with a true freshman, which you have to know is a scary proposition as a receiver if you want to put up good numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no rapport or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
you've not been able to. I mean, he will come in early.
Yep.
You will have a lot of time to do stuff with him. So maybe he sticks around. Well, I mean,
What did Rambo do with his draft status? I know he went to Miami and played really well.
Played a lot better than here.
Right, he played very well in Miami and had over 1,000 yards.
He was
season,
their best
I think.
receiver, yeah.
But what did that do for his? Where did he go in the
I
draft?
have no idea.
Yeah.
Nothing notable.
I was trying to remember if he was like a fourth rounder or if he
I
even,
think he's in the XFL.
is he really?
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, we might look that up, but I think you're right. So, I don't know.
That's a toss-up. I mean, it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
I mean, can Mims be like Rambo?
He better be careful.
Yeah.
And that would be the story you'd tell him. And look at where Hazelwood is at Arkansas. That remains to be seen.
Well, and if you're Mims too, you know this staff, you know what your position and your placement on the team is going to be. You are going to be, regardless of who comes in with an Anthony Evans or someone like that, or even a Jaden Gibson who's coming up from the ranks. Mims, if he comes back, is wide receiver one. I mean, there's no doubt about
You're
it.
going to get
Well,
a
you
lot
might
of
have
looks.
There's no question about
You
it.
might have a new coach, too.
I don't know if Farouk may be wide receiver one.
You might not want to deal with I don't know.
I don't know. Mims is on the field regardless, though. And
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's going to be anywhere he goes, but he also doesn't have to go and build a different relationship. There is something to be said for the relationship that he has built with Gabriel over the past season that he would have to completely restart with any other quarterback, assuming it's not Caleb Williams, since he's had time with him.
But again, Caleb Williams has other targets already.
Exactly. So
you got to be careful.
But he just
what you
built
walk
that
into.
relationship with Gabriel that quick a time. It'd be the same situation going to another school and building a situation.
Yeah,
with a new
but
quarterback.
He's had a
you
whole
can't
season
assume
now.
you can do it though. Yeah, he's already
No,
had
what
an
I'm saying
entire
with what he
season.
already has this year, he started in January whenever Gabriel showed up on campus. If he transferred somewhere in January, he would have the same amount of time to build with a new quarterback.
up until the start of the
No,
season,
but
but I'm
that-
saying
but
he has
that's
the
the point.
entire
He had- yeah.
the entire season since then
Yeah.
Right.
to have gotten.
I understand
used to
building
it.
on what he has
But I get
now
what
would be
you're saying,
more,
right.
but I'm saying it's not like
It's an equal.
he can't start a new relationship just like he did this year with another quarterback
We could.
and feel as comfortable.
He could. It'd be very hard. It'd be tough to do that. That's a big gamble. It's a big gamble to think you can find that program, be that receiver that's going to be on the field for sure, even if you're number 2 receiver. Have that relationship with the quarterback and build it. We assume it's a good relationship. Maybe it's not. But you've got to start from scratch if you go somewhere new, and you wouldn't be starting from scratch here. So, I don't know. Depends on how he feels about it in terms of things we just wouldn't know. What we can see on paper, though, it's very clear he probably needs to come back to improve his draft stock, that is to college, and he is in a really good position at OU to be the top or one of the top 2 receivers. And it appears he's got a pretty good relationship with everybody.
Yeah, and I'll
including
go out on a
understands
limb.
the
I'll even
offense.
go out on a limb. I think he comes back. I mean, after thinking, a lot of the stuff that we've missed with him this year has just been
Just missed.
miss throws or drops, and it's
Yeah,
not,
he's got to share a drop.
It's not
too,
like
yeah.
it's not like he's not getting targets. I mean, on Sooners fantasy, there's a reason he's the top wide receiver. It's because
Yeah, so
he's-
Rambo left because he wasn't being a
he
target.
wasn't getting targets, and wasn't
it's a
getting
different
the stats.
situation.
So
I don't know.
I don't know.
Depends on the kid and the influencers that are working on him. What about Stoops? Stoops going to come back? He was announced as a senior, and obviously at senior day, but he's not going to get drafted.
I
Is
think
he?
he's silly if he doesn't come back. If he doesn't use the COVID year, I think he's crazy.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
Surely, unless he's just
done with football.
playing. But
That could be. Maybe he may want to transition into a coaching role. Who knows?
I mean, he seems custom fit to be a New England Patriot.
He does. He really does. But I don't think he's going to get drafted in that position. He might as well come back and build another year, grab some NIL money.
I don't know. He's the exact kind of guy that Belichick would want.
Do you think he'd draft him?
I wouldn't see why he wouldn't take a flyer on him in the 5th round. He checks all the boxes that the Edelman and the
Maybe so.
Welker
Maybe so.
and
If
who
you
was-
could get the
who was
warm and
other-
fuzzy that you're going to get drafted, but it's just, that's just one team.
Amendola. I mean, he fills all those.
I don't know if
He
he's
can
as good as
field
those
punts.
guys.
He's a coach's son. You know, Belichick and Stoops know each other. He may.
Maybe undrafted free agent type deal.
So
He
that's
doesn't-
an interesting
Another thing, he
angle.
probably doesn't need the money.
He doesn't
You
have,
never know. Some parents don't.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I'm
out.
sure he'd want the money.
Yeah.
He'd want his own money. So that's an interesting thing you bring up about Stoops and Belichick having at least a knowledge of each other in a relationship. Stoops could pick up the phone and talk to Belichick. So conceivably on his son's behalf, he could call and say, hey, just floating in a question, if my son declared, what would it be his chances of getting drafted by you? Knowing that that is his probably by far best fit in the NFL. There might be other teams that will draft him, but his best bet is with a team like that who has proven that they use receivers of that type and caliber. That'd be interesting to see because he could get information like that and decide to enter the draft on stronger belief that he's going to go and get drafted by New England.
I don't know. You look at a lot of his skill set and stuff. I do agree. I think he fits a kind of the prototypical model that we've seen with those guys you've mentioned. But something that at least that we haven't seen, I haven't seen a ton of speed. That
He has
that
no
those
run
guys
after
have
the catch plays.
in there. Yeah, his
They're either caught.
Yeah, Edelman is a much faster
I
player.
see.
than
You
him.
can see Stoops on a wheel route that works, and you can see Stoops on a slant for 3rd and 7 or a second
4th down.
Yeah, or something like that. I haven't seen a lot else out of, and we haven't needed him for anything else than that, fortunately.
Now,
But
maybe he's a guy who gets. It'd be interesting to see Stoops play in 2017, 2018, because with that receiving core and with that offense, he might be the guy
His
that
role
slips
becomes completely
behind.
different, yeah.
And he's the guy they forget about time and again. And
He's
then
the guy
you
that
might
goes to the sticks and cuts in, and he's open.
Yeah, and then
for
you
the
might
3rd
see
and 7s. Yeah,
not just 3rd and 7, and he may be able to put
break
15
one,
more
yeah.
yards into it.
because all the DBs are downfield.
Yeah, so I don't know with a full NFL roster around him, maybe that you've got a GM and Belichick who look at it and say, yeah, we can make this guy work. I don't know.
Well, we need some talented.
I hope
depth
he comes
at that
back.
position.
I hope he comes back as
Yeah,
well.
I do too. I think we need some depth there.
That would be good. I hope that we make some critical decisions on pushing guys to the portal who need to be pushed.
DJ Graham, portal.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be really good. Free up a position, free up a scholarship.
Guy doesn't even know. We don't even know where he's playing. He's been non-existent since he declared that he's a wide receiver.
And yeah,
So-
that's crazy, isn't it?
I mean,
Yeah, I think he's gone.
I mean, declared he was a wide receiver, and we just never saw the field.
no.
That's really weird.
Yep.
Unless that's a long game, and he comes back thinking he's gonna
Just God
one of
knows.
these guys that surprises the hell out of you because he comes back the next season and is like your number 4 leading receiver. I don't
Right.
know. I don't
Right.
see that happening. So that's frees up his position. I'd like to see several of those type of players that they know who they've got coming in, they know who they've got young developing, and they say you're just go have your senior or junior year somewhere else.
If we keep the class of receivers that we currently have, it's going to be interesting because they are legit elite speed receivers.
That's awesome.
And it's hard to keep off the field no matter how old they are.
And you shouldn't.
Without me looking, but I'm going to try to look while we're talking about it. Tell us a little bit more about our class. How many guys do we got right now?
Pretty sure it's 23.
That's the number I think I saw a couple days ago.
That's what I thought too.
With what we're trying to push, or where we're at right now, going.
It looks like
Going
we're
into
ranked
the
number 9, 23
December.
players. Still no 5 stars. I guess Jackson Arnold doesn't count on Rivals. 13 4-stars though.
Rivals is always the last to do
update their
updates,
numbers,
and
yeah.
they do them the least amount of updates a year. So Arnold, PJ are 5 stars, almost consensus on all the other sites. So I think once Rivals does their final evals again, once
be there.
like high school playoffs
They'll
and
be
stuff
there.
are done, I think those two will be up there in the 5 stars for sure. And then, of course, you've got the potential of the Hicks and Bowen situation.
Yeah. So at what point do we just say there's 28 days between now and signing day. At what point is it all right? These guys are decommitting, or we think they're going to decommit in this time frame, and are they going to flip on signing day? Or are they going to flip?
I hope they flip in a way that causes maximum pain.
That would be funny. Bowen, I know, is an early enrollee, so you would think
soon.
You wouldn't.
Yeah.
But even then, they don't have to officially announce that they've committed to your school. It's a strange thing. I don't know. You would think if someone signs with you,
let's talk
just
about it.
Put it out there. I mean, what's the deal? Hicks, people talk about Hicks might be into February.
What do you think the probability is we flip Hicks back, if you will?
I put it at 40%.
Yeah, 40, 50. I don't know. I think he's
Pretty
visiting.
good.
I think he's visiting A&M this weekend.
So maybe if LSU can stomp a mud hole in him, he'll be like, this doesn't look very fun.
Well, I hope not only they stomp them, I hope the stands are relatively empty, and
No, those cult members
I hope
will be
there's
there.
some weird... Well, no,
They
it
weren't
wasn't
last
last
week.
week.
Well, they're playing UMass.
And so I hope it's an embarrassment all around, and I hope there's some
I hope so
weird
too, because I
stuff that
locked
goes
LSU.
Yeah, you did. Well, that would be a big flip if we could get that. It would be very... obviously, it would just feel good to get a player like that back, but he's a big part of
I think Bowen's
the defensive
80%.
class. Bowen's at 80%?
That's what I would say.
Oh.
I'll be shocked if he continues to go to Notre Dame.
We'll know soon. Especially if he's early enrollee.
No, we do. I was looking at the list, Jay, just like you say, and it's a pretty well-rounded class. 3 receivers, 2 running backs. I think I counted 3 offensive linemen. We're getting some high-profile defense guys, and they get a lot of the publicity, and rightfully so, because that's a new change for us versus what we've done in the last 6 years. But at the same time, we have some really good offensive players coming in. So that's a really nice class, and there's a reason it's a top 10 class, and maybe could go higher, may deserve to be higher. We'll see. That gives me a lot of hope for the future.
There's a reason to be hopeful, for sure.
Yeah, definitely so.
After this weekend, anyway.
This weekend will be a good weekend. No overtime this weekend. I can say that confidently. Anything else to talk about? As we drizzly weather, it's going to be cold and rainy on Saturday. Maybe here as well, it looks like. So glad we don't have a home game to have to suffer through that. But we're going to enjoy hopefully a good game on Saturday and some other good games this entire Thanksgiving weekend. Let's end with what are we thankful for? It's Thanksgiving. What are we thankful for this season of rebuilding? Who's got something they're thankful for?
I am thankful for Jaron Kanik.
Oh, nice.
If I have to look at he's had some mishaps and some plays where he's been out of place, but if I had to put a kind of just stamp on what I think this team is going to be and the type of player that embodies what this team is going to be, it would be that kid. The way he plays, the intensity, all wrapped up in what Brent Venables is trying to establish here. I'm thankful for that type of player, him specifically coming in, especially being the commitment to Clemson and moving over to OU. I think it embodies a lot of where this team is headed. So thankful for him, thankful for the team that we have going forward.
What do you guys got?
I'm thankful for end zone seating. And that's a big shout out to my dad, because when we decided in 1999 is when my streak started, I went to every home game, but I sat in a different portion of the stadium the entire season. And then in the off season, he says, hey, we went to all these games and sat different places and had to go find our seats and were around different people. He said, what do you think about getting season tickets? And when I was a kid, they had them in the Gibbs era in, I think it was section 19, so they were still end zone a little bit further to the east side. But I said, yeah, sounds good. So we put in for tickets going into the 2000 season. It ended up in section 16, and I want to say we were in the 50s as far as how high. And we were there a couple years, and then we ended up saying, it should be nice to get up to the top against that wall in the top row. And it took us, I think we spent 3 or 4 years in the 50s and then moved up to, at some point, 71, which is one row from the top, for maybe, it was 12 years maybe, somewhere between 10 and 12 years before we finally got up to row 72. And it's the best, and I'm very thankful for that.
What do you got, Jay?
I'm thankful for something that's actually been frustrating to us this season, but that is just we have an identity and we are sticking to it, and I think we have a recruiting plan and we're sticking to it, and the type of player that we're looking for. And I think the fruits of our labor is going to pan out from that.
That goes underappreciated, that we
That's
are
a good
not,
point. Very
we
good
have a
point.
core, and Brent Venables and his entire staff, his entire leadership is driven towards an ends that he's not compromising on. And I like that. That's probably something we need to be more thankful
and like
for
I
and
said,
more
it
proud
was
of.
frustrating this
Yeah,
year
absolutely.
because I don't know that we necessarily would have had any more wins or not, but I do think they probably could have tweaked some things that might have
Compromised
been
in ways
detrimental to
the long term.
the longer picture, the bigger picture.
Well, even if it wouldn't have, I think there's a risk of that, and they perceive that risk as pretty high. Even if they're wrong about that, I'm glad they've got a vision of where they want to go, and they're headstrong towards it, that they're not going to move on whims. They might have added incremental wins or maybe not. They may have been able to not compromise the long-term vision but still make adjustments that would have added wins, sure. But I'd rather them err on we have a long-term vision of where we want to go versus we're just going to do whatever it takes to win week by week by week, and we'll throw out the weirdest stuff in the world, because that probably leaves you short. I don't want them to be short-sighted. I'd rather them have the long game in mind, and it does seem like they have that.
So
Yeah, maybe if
you're
we
thankful
were
for the Kool-Aid
Yeah.
because you're drinking it.
well, maybe if we were slightly if we were slightly better.
Do they not get a Kool-Aid all the way up to the top row of the end zone?
No, we don't drink that crap up there.
Okay.
No, they drink the water that comes from the packed bathrooms that we have to deal with up in the upper deck.
They drink the cheap beer.
Yeah.
I think if we had been slightly better and still been in the Big 12 title run, they would have been more likely to maybe do some
Sure.
things they didn't want to do.
Because then you're playing for more.
Right, you've got more, but I think once we lost a couple more games, we're just going to roll with it.
Well, I would like to be optimistic. You could call it a homer take, but I think it's just optimism that this is a learning season. And this was a chance to learn a lot of things you don't get to learn if you happen to squeak by and win a couple of the one-possession games we lost, where you get to take a hard look at everything. You learn some hard lessons. This past weekend, if we were winning, if that was our 8th win or 9th win of the season, and we win 28-13 the exact same way, I don't think the criticism would have sunk in or been in any respect as well received as it was if they would have done the same stuff. Hey, we're a 9-2 team. What are you complaining about?
It's like last year.
Like last year. But there's no hiding from what you've been doing and the mistakes you've been making. So when they roll out a game that has clear flaws in it, the way that game did, especially with clock management, if that lesson alone was actually learned as a result, and I think it probably is more easily in a season like this, then I think that's a plus. So that's going to be something dovetailing with what I'm thankful for. So I'm thankful for being a Sooner. And I say that because I'm thankful that I got to root for a team and get to root for a team that is a perennial winner, that has championship football as its benchmark. Not just being okay, not just beating a couple of opponents that happen to be rivals or whatever, but actually competing for championships year in and year out. And therefore, I'm also thankful for this season. And the reason is, this season's painful. This season is rough. This season is not up to the benchmark by any stretch of the imagination. But it is what helps us appreciate when we do win. And it's something that we will be able to reflect back on and be better fans for and have a more enjoyable experience to say we earned it. And we earned getting to enjoy championship football because we've experienced this level of football, which was very, very disappointing. There's a lot of teams at 6-5, and their fans are pretty much, that's okay. That's what we do. We have good years. We have bad years. This is an average year. This is a very bad year for us.
It's a down year.
It's a down year for us. It's a rebuilding year. It's a very down year for us. And I'm thankful for being a Sooner, and I'm thankful for a year like this, and I'm ready to get it over with because I'm ready to get back to championship football. Anything else before we sign off? Waiting for the Texas Tech game?
Thankful for our listeners and hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all the listeners.
Agreed.
And until then, Boomer,
Sooner.